So kia ora, nau mai, haere mai, and a really warm welcome to this CX Collective Discovery session for the Navigating Human-Centered Change course. My name is Sarah Clearwater, and I'm the founder of the CX Collective. I also run a boutique design agency called Reframer, and today's topic really is one that's very close to my heart, which is all about how we can help designers be more impactful in their work. And Kathy, if I could just get you to put yourself on mute.
Sorry, I thought
No
I was. Classic.
And then we don't have any background noise. Perfect, thank you so much. So Navigating Human-Centered Change is, of course, a course that we offer, but I want to talk a bit more broadly about some of the things that I see in the design industry and some of the reasons that I think some designers might not be hitting their full potential. And some of what you're hearing today really is also an opportunity for you to think about how, you know, you could implement some of the things that we're talking about today in your design practice, no matter if you choose to take the course at the end of this or not. And one thing I also want to preface that if you made it here today, as a little reward, I'm posting a link in the chat to a discounted offer to the course. So if you're not already a member of the CX Collective, you're considering joining, if you're here live today, you also have the option of joining with the early bird price, which saves you about $150 on the course price, which should be pretty exciting. Awesome. So Navigating Human-Centered Change is the idea that as designers, there is more to design than just our day jobs. In fact, I would argue that there are in fact two jobs that we have as designers. And the first one is our day job. And our day jobs are all the things that we know to be true in terms of our craft or the things that need to get done. So by that, I mean things like customer insights, developing journey maps, running workshops, writing reports, developing personas, developing user interfaces, mock-ups and prototypes. All of these things are effectively things that we do because we are KPI'd on them, because they're part of the output that are expected from us. And as designers, we're uniquely positioned to deliver these as well. Now, we also know that what sometimes happens is that design teams think they're doing really well. You know, they're cracking through the workload, they're delivering some really awesome insights, they present them to the business, and the business goes, thanks, but maybe later, or we've changed priorities, or actually, you know, can you do this again? Because we're not quite clear on this and this and this. And it sometimes feels like we're putting in all this effort into our design work and delivering really awesome artifacts, and then nothing happens. Why? And that's where I think this other job comes in that we actually all have, that is not often spoken about, that's not remunerated in any way, that no one tells us how to do, and that is the change job. And the change jobs are all the things that we have to do for our design work to land. What is that? Prepping people for a workshop and helping them understand what they're getting themselves into, prefacing and framing insights work we're doing so the business knows exactly what to do with it, removing or working with some key barriers or detractors that we have in our immediate stakeholder groups, figuring out how we can collaborate across silos and get more people to work in a way that is conducive to collaboration and creativity. All of these things are not really mentioned anywhere, but to do work on them, A, is really time intensive, a little bit chaotic because it's fundamentally the human condition. And it also is something that can sometimes overwhelm us and take precious resource away from the things we actually should be doing. Now, what I also notice is that the design job or the day job in many ways is all the things that the business asks of us, right? It's a process or a behavior that is measurable, that is sequential, that we can attach metrics to, that is, you know, we can make a project plan around, that we can say we're doing this in sprint 1, this in sprint 2, and this in sprint 7. But the change job, we can't really say our sprint 3 is all about managing this particular stakeholder. It's sort of things that emerge in the moment and that we have to respond to. Sometimes in the middle of a workshop when someone clearly is disengaged. Sometimes when we present a customer insight and everybody draws a blank. Sometimes when we think we've got everything in place to get resource sign off for a new FTE or for some more customer research, and then suddenly that door shuts and we realize, oh, we've missed something. And what very often happens is that those two things start becoming will sort of start crashing when we haven't paid enough attention to the change job. And more often than not, what that looks and feels like is, I'm stuck in research. I can't seem to go out of it. The business doesn't seem to know what to do with it. These two jobs crashing or not having invested enough time into the change job can look and feel like, I really need more resources to run this team, or I really have to get in front of the executive to help them understand the important changes we have to make. But that time, that space is never unlocked for you. That can look and feel like you're being invited to a project last minute, right at the end, and being asked to either just do a bit of testing or can you make this look pretty? You are the designer, right? All of these things are indicators that the environment that we find ourselves in actually isn't ready to use our work in a way that is meaningful. And if I think, and I reflect on this often, what are we here to do? What is the job to be done of design? It's not to develop artifacts and to push out outputs. It's ultimately to fundamentally alter the narrative in business of what is normal, what is possible, and what is valuable. Yeah, I'll repeat that. The ultimate effort that we are committing to as designers is to change the narrative in business around what is normal, what is valuable, and what is possible. And if we think about the fact that most of us come from a variation of a human-centered design lens, we're talking about how might we de-center profit and re-center people and possibly the planet and possibly other things that are important to you. How might we move beyond power structures and hierarchies to ways of collaborating and working with one another as equals? How might we, step outside of output into spending time and space and sitting with people and their needs and sometimes really complex and hairy problems? All of these desires that we have as designers and all of these behaviors that we need to be successful in our day job are counterintuitive to everybody else in the organization. They're counterintuitive to the status quo of how business is conducted today. And so if I think about what we are doing as designers, we are change agents, and our craft, that is the tools that we have, lend itself to do the job. But we need to figure out how we can use those tools in a way that actually drive change. And this is ultimately what navigating human-centered change is all about, is to say, how can we step out of what we know we do well and use these as tools to drive change inside our organizations? And there's sort of 5 key areas that I think are part of this effort that can help. And they are obviously part of the course, but there are also things that you can start doing in your own practice straight away. So the first thing that I want to offer you as a tool to actually start working with your environment and to navigate that dynamic between day job and change job is to understand the environment that you're in. And also to understand that every time you're stepping into a new team, a new role, a new organization, a new project, your landscape, the environment in which you apply your design changes. And what worked last time isn't going to work next time. To give you a really sort of simple example, I'm a consultant by trade. Every time I walk into an organization, I draw a different tool from my kete, a different story from my story arsenal, a different mechanism to engage stakeholders that is very evident when I move between public and private sector, but that is equally as evident when I walk into, you know, a room full of marketers versus a room full of developers in the same organization. My landscape and my ability to influence my environment changes. And so we need to become really, really apt at reading the room, at reading this landscape. And so the first module of the course is all around mapping your practice landscape and understanding the conditions within you find yourself so that you can start influencing an environment that is more conducive to being able to use your work. The next module is sense making. And that can feel really abstract sometimes, but if I give you an example, there's this beautiful story of the six blind men and the elephant. And the six blind men are being invited into the Maharaja's you know, palace, because they all have been talking about wanting to know what an elephant looks like. And so there's the Maharaja's elephant and the six blind men, and one of the men touches, you know, a leg of the elephant and says, "An elephant, it's very rough, you know, it's like sandpaper. That's what an elephant looks like." And another blind man touches the tail and says, "No, the tail, it's like a rope. It's tiny, it's thin, and it's very long, you know." Another one touches the elephant's ear and says, elephants are like sails, you know, they're roomy, and the skin is like, feels very, very soft. You can see how, because every one of these blind men has a particular perspective on the elephant, no one can see the whole elephant. And the same is true for us. As designers, we hold a really unique perspective on customers, on what businesses are there to do, on what is right and wrong, on what is normal, what's valuable, and what's possible. And in the module that we're going through together, I'm talking specifically around how we can remake and break the sense that we have made intentionally to allow a more diverse group of stakeholders actually understand what we're here to do and how we might be able to do it together. The third module is on storytelling. And storytelling is, I think, a skill that people always throw around and say it's a skill that we need to have. And I would argue that, I would bet actually that most of you have got some really awesome customer stories, some really important stories around how businesses could serve people better. But it's not the stories that are fraught or not good enough. It's that we often don't know how those stories could be told in a way that different audiences understand. So again, what we're doing in the course is to say, here are 3 different ways of framing a story, so that you can use what you know to be some really spectacular, you know, examples of lived experience in your customers and communities' lives, and elevate them into spaces and into language that your key stakeholders understand. Those key stakeholders that often sit in positions of power, that are far away from the front line, that are focused on bottom line, that are worried about feasibility, that are worried about how will this contribute to shareholder growth, and not about how do we show up and market in a way that is meaningful in people's lives, that is not an obstacle, that is not a detractor from people's lived experience. The stories that you hold as design practitioners are often phenomenal. The way in which we tell them is often from our unique perspective, which is why the sense making and the storytelling work well and work together so well. And then the next module is on facilitation, and all of you would have facilitated, but I wonder how many of you would have facilitated in ways that allows you to drive a subtle agenda while delivering the output. A lot of facilitation that I see happen in the design space is around, let's co-design the journey. Let's, you know, do a gap analysis on our customer needs. You know, let's interrogate the business knowledge we already have. And we get excited about the fact that we've worked with the business to achieve an output. What we often haven't considered is that facilitation is one of our key mechanisms to influence change inside organizations. And how might we use our facilitation practice as an intentional mechanism, as a tool for the business to become and be more receptive to human-centered outcomes. The last module on this course is on reflection. And sometimes people go, I don't have enough time for reflection, like especially in business, right? We sprint, we have an output, we go on to the next project. And that's no matter if you work in the public or the private sector. The need for speed, the desire for tangible outputs is overwhelming, and reflection can sometimes be seen as a nice to have. But if there's one thing I know to be true, is that we don't learn from reflection. Or sorry, we don't learn from our experience. We learn from reflecting on our experiences. We don't learn from experience. We learn from reflecting on our experiences. So if we don't make time for reflection, we don't make time for learning. And if we don't make time for learning, we don't make time for doing better next time around. So what we're sharing in the course, again, is sort of quite a simple 3-step process you can throw into any of your rituals that help you as an individual or as a team reflect on what's just happened, so you can move forward with some intentionality and some learning. Yeah. So in a nutshell, if you sign up to the course, that is what you would sign up to. It's a 6-week commitment, including the introduction session and then the 5 modules. We are going through 1 module a week, and then that each module will take you about 2 or 3 hours a week to complete. That includes the 1-hour Cohort Connect, as well as sort of the bite-sized on-demand modules that are available to you that you can just watch in your own time. We encourage working with a study buddy so that you're not going through this alone. So if there's someone else in your team or someone else that you meet in the cohort who you're really want to work with or just want to check in with, that's really encouraged, and that's facilitated through the platform that we are working on. And then we're also working on a shared learning diary. So this is the 3rd or 4th cohort that we are running in public rather than inside an organization. And if you go into the course feed, you actually see everybody else has come before you share their outputs from each of the modules. So not only can you learn from your peers in your cohort, but you can also see what people have come before you have done, and your outputs are serving as a learning tool for the people who come after you. So it's really sort of set up, if you will, to inter-cohort learning, and for the course to evolve with your knowledge and with your expertise. The course is industry endorsed, meaning it's been developed with industry, and we are accrediting it through the collective. That means after course completion, you get a certification that you can add to your LinkedIn or your CV if you want. It is self-paced on demand, meaning you can do it in your own time, but it is grounded in community, because we know that we work best with others. And then the next cohort does start on the 28th of February, which is a Wednesday evening at 6:30. We're doing that for 6 weeks. And then you're sort of through everything. I wanted to show you a bit what that looks like when you actually jump into the course. So we have a dedicated course platform that is available on your desktop and also on your phone by an app. And on there live all of the course materials, all the events that are the live sessions that you would be attending. And you can see all the members, everybody else who's taken the course before you. And so you can connect with anybody who's done that course or who's currently in your course. And then you also see these are examples of what people have put up in the learning feed prior to you in the shared learning diary. So they work on Miro, or they work in Figma, or they just work on paper, or they just write something out in Word, and they share their ideas and their stories, and you do that in your own time. And then when we come together as a cohort, you get to sort of talk about these, reflect on these, and really unpack what you've learned, with the intention that you go back to work tomorrow and can apply something of what you've learned in this course setting. And here are some examples of people who've taken the course before you and who really rated the course and encourage others to join. And I thought it'd be nice if you didn't just hear from me, but also from some other folks who really enjoyed this. So that was it from me. That was really the overview of the course and a bit around navigating human-centered change. I can now finally lower my hand and stop the recording and love to hear from you, any questions, comments, reflections that came up.